next video of how to make granny squares, I'm going to show you my method of how I change colour so that you can have different colours for each row or play around with the different colours in your granny square. Here are a couple of granny squares that I've made. They're slightly different rows, but you can see the difference between making a granny square in one colour and a granny square in multiple colours. How you can really play and completely change the look of the granny square. This one is a row of 1, 2, 3, 4. This is rounds 1, 2 and 3. So again, I can stop and decide how big I want my square to be, or I could completely keep going and make a really large blanket purely just from carrying on the granny square pattern all the way around. Okay, so let's make a start with our granny square where we're going to change colours. Now in this video, the focus is about changing the colours and how I go about it. So there's going to be less about me actually the construction of the granny square itself. If you want to have a more detailed video about how to make a granny square, then go back to my Susie Jules Creates channel page and you will find the tutorial there. So I'm starting with my round 1 and my first colour. I'm using the magic loop method. I'm going to start off with my chain 3, and as a quick recap, I then do 2 trebles, yarn over, insert into my ring, lift up 3 loops on the hook, and I've gone yarn over through the first 2, yarn over through the second 2, and again yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. There's my first cluster. Let's put that back to that side, and now I'm going to create the corners with the chain 3, and I'm going to now create another 3 trebles, clusters with the chains in between to create round 1. Okay, so I've just completed my 4th set of 3 trebles, making a granny cluster, and chained 3 to form the corner. And because I have made mine with the magic loop, I'm pulling the short end nice and tight to bring that middle together, and then I'm going to insert the hook into the 3rd chain. So now we're going to change colour, and how I go about this, there might be all sorts of different ways, and in fact I know there's different ways that people join and change colours, and there's probably different methods that you can do this. This is just how I found suits me, and I'm just sharing that with you so you can watch and see how you get on with this. You might want to look for something else, you might find it useful. So now I've got that first, I'm going in for my next colour, this lovely mint green, which goes lovely with this purple. And what I do then from here is, obviously I'm going to do on the next round is the chain 4 that forms the end of this corner cluster here. All I basically do is just loop the yarn over the hook and pull it through. But then I pull down on the purple and make that nice and tight, and I shorten that and make that nice and tight. And then I just get going and just start holding it down as I go, so that I'm keeping it nice and secure to start with. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what I will then do is, all this secure is done, I do at the very end. I chop it all off and tighten and pull and knot and connect it all at the very end. And that's what I do, and keep just keep going now. So now I'm going to work my way round for round 2 of this granny square. Okay, just that little quick reminder, I'm now at the end of round 2, and I've just in the last corner created the first cluster of 3 trebles and chained 3. So now I'm going to do the next cluster of 3, where I'm going to include this chain of 4 that I did at the beginning, using the first 3 from that chain 4. Now at this point I'm going to chop off that purple and get that out of the way, otherwise might end up in a bit of a tangle. I'll just keep that one on for the minute, and you can see I'm going to have lots of loose ends, but we'll deal with them at the end. So I'm starting it the same way at the moment, and I'm just going to show you the difference that I've found. So I pull it through that loop like I did with the previous one, just like that. Pull it tight and just pull this one down as well, make that a bit tighter. Now if I start my trebles straight into this space, oops, you can find that this connection here is starting to pull up a little bit. Now obviously when I do all my tightening and knotting, you do pull that back down and it improves that join. But that cluster looks like it starts quite far up here. So the other way that you can do this join on this third round, and it's for any round where you start with the chain of 4 from the previous, where we've got this, because just to remind you, when you have done a chain 4 and I'm finishing up there, my finishing loop is quite far across. What you can do is join the same way. I'm putting my yarn over my hook, pulling it through that loop, just pulling them tight for the minute. I then actually do a slip stitch into the space first, and it almost just moves me across. So I put my hook through, now I'm joined on into that chain space, yarn over, pull through that loop, through the hole, and then through the loop on the hook, and I just pull it all a bit tight again. So now I'm starting from inside the actual chain space rather than starting from over here. And I've just found with the changing colours on this particular round that then just sort of helps it start in the right place. 1, 2, 3, there's my chain 3. If I do my other trebles, 2, 3, I've then got a more clearer treble in that space, rather than it sort of being interfered with the colour from the previous round. So that's just an option, that's just a little tip, that's just something I found that works to get that third round working a little bit better. So I'm going to carry on round with this third round now, and I'll meet you back around for round 4. Okay, so now I'm at the end of this third round, and I finished with that final corner and my final 3 trebles to form that final cluster. I'm going to chain 1 so it matches all the way round as this is joining into the side, and then I'm going to find the 1, 2, 3rd chain from that first chain I started the round with and slip stitch into there. Okay, like so. And then I'm going to do 1/4 final round. These squares are what I'm using to make granny square bags, and for those, every time the 4th round is always the same colour, so it almost forms a body of the bag. You don't have to do it like that, you can do all sorts. That's what I love about them, is that you can really play around with different combinations. So for the 4th round, we're going to do the same again. I've still got my yarn on my hook from the 3rd round. I put the 4th colour over the hook and just pull it through that loop. I pull down tight on the 3rd round colour, and then I get started straight away. This is again another round where I'm starting with a chain 4 because I'm at the end of this cluster and at the end of this chain space. So I prefer to start with a chain 4 and make that the final treble of the round that I will connect to. 1, 2, 3, and 4th, and I'm just going to pull all that back down again so it's all nice and tight, and then I'm going to now do my first treble into this chain space and make another 2 for a 3 in total. So I'm going to carry on round and make this 4th round. So I'm just at the end of my 4th and final round for this size square that I want to do today, and I've just done the final chain 1 from this granny cluster and I'm ready to go into this last chain space here and connect to my chain 4 to create the final treble. That's where I'm going to end. If I was going to do a fifth and a different colour on this particular square, I'm back at that same situation from earlier where my ending is quite far over. So once I've changed colour, I might want to slip stitch into here to move over and begin my chain 3 from inside that chain space. So that was the tip that I gave you earlier in the video, because you can see how far over that is. As I'm stopping here, I'm just going to simply snip this off. So snip off the end of my grey, and then I'm going to just pull that through. You can take your hook out if you prefer, make your loop a bit bigger, stick the cut end through it and just pull it tight like so. So for the final stage of a multicoloured granny square is to finish off and sort out all the ends on the back. You're going to need a wool needle for this. You can get plastic rigid ones. I quite like these ones with a plastic end because they're a little bit more flexible. So the first thing that I tend to do is actually knot. I do lots of knotting. It just for me feels like I'm really securing the ends. So I just give them a little bit more of a last sort of gentle tug really. And I knot, if you see, if I split them out, these are the pairings that I've got. So I've got the first one on its own, the last one on its own, and then the others in sets of pairs. So I tend to knot these ones up. It obviously might depend on what you're going to use your granny square for, because I'm going to use these in a bag, which is going to be in the inside, and you can line a bag if you want to. You can be a little bit less precious about the back. However, if you're using it for a blanket and the back might be seen, you might not want to add knots and just literally go straight into weaving in the ends and trying to disguise them within the stitches. Okay, so now that I've got those knotted and they're extra secure, this is obviously the one from the magic circle. So I give that another last tug, and you can see how it's just getting it that little bit closer. And then all you need to do with all of these ends is just finding ways. I've threaded my needle, which obviously is nice and easy with it being a wool needle, and just weave in and out of the gaps and just pulling that end in. Just because I want to make it doubly secure, I tend to go through quite a few. It's really up to you, it doesn't really matter until you feel happy that it's secure enough. So I've almost gone around the full circle there, and then I'll snip it back and snip that off. And then with the ones where I've knotted, I will tend to keep the purple within the purple. So I might do a little bit of just going in the back of the actual stitching. Snip that off. And then with this green end, because that end's quite short, I'm actually going to put my needle in first. I'm going to go under the green here. Sometimes you find, particularly because this needle's quite long as well, these particular ones do come in 3 sizes. I've got one of the long ones here. I'll put the needle in first and then I can pull that through. So I'm just going to do the same with these last few, and then I'll just talk about that last one at the end. So I've weaved in all the ends of all those colours now, and I've just got the last one left, which is my end yarn there. As you can see with this, how I've done them, you can see these knots. I'm not worried about that for the purpose that I'm using it for. As I said, if you feel that you want to have both sides looking neat, you might not want to start with those knots and go straight for weaving in. This is exactly the same as well really. It's just a little bit more awkward because you're on the end, so you can weave along into these areas here and perhaps bring it down over here. It's just really just to be aware that you're not changing the look of it from the front too much really. And then once you've done that and cut it off, you've then got your completed granny square for whatever you want to use it for. I'm going to be making some more to make into my granny square handbag. If you'd like to see my pattern for my granny square bags, which includes talking about different sizes, different styles that you can make to get lots of different looks, go ahead over to my website. You'll find lots of different things alongside the pattern, plus some colour yarn packs. So if you like the colours I'm using, you also can purchase those on my website too. Thanks for watching. I hope you found that video useful, and I look forward to seeing you back at Susie Jules Creates very soon.